President Joe Biden will deliver his first State of the Union address tonight, and it's a chance for him to lay out his domestic agenda, talk about his accomplishment. But it comes as bombs and gunfire rain down on Ukraine, including on civilians. Joining me now to talk about what we can expect from the president is Congressman Ted Lieu, representing West Los Angeles and also a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. We thank you very much for joining us, Congressman Lieu. I can't help noticing the pin you have on there on your lapel. What is that representing?
Thank you, Mark, for your question. We stand with Ukraine. President Biden has done a masterful job assembling a worldwide coalition to push back against the Russian aggression. And we look forward to hearing what President Biden has to say tonight about the Ukraine conflict.
This is one of those cases where current events are kind of catching up to what the president has to say. Normally, this is a point where the president talks about his agenda, talks about what he's done and what he hopes to do with the future. But he's got to address Ukraine, I would imagine, first. How is he going to make his case tonight?
I believe President Biden will talk about how democracy is going to prevail over autocracy, and we're going to make sure that Russia gets economic sanctions and other diplomatic and financial costs imposed upon Vladimir Putin and his government. And we're going to try everything we can to help and support the Ukrainian people with military aid and with humanitarian aid. And then the president is also going to pivot and talk about how we've done a tremendous job mitigating COVID. And now we're going to move to a different stage where people can take off their masks and lots of people getting vaccinated, and talk about controlling inflation.
This is a more partisan event than even it used to be. In the past, it would just be when the president spoke, members of his party would applaud and other members would sit down on the other side. Now it's at the point where it's a question of whether some will even attend the event. There's a requirement for a COVID test, a negative test, in order to go. What are you hearing about whether your colleagues on the right side of the aisle are going to be there?
I'm disappointed that some of my Republican colleagues said they didn't have the time to take a COVID test. I took one yesterday. It took 5 minutes, one for the test, then 4 minutes to wait in the line. I also want to note that I went to every single State of the Union for the former president, even though I didn't agree with him on many issues. I believe it's important for members of Congress to show up because this is our official duty to listen to what the President of the United States has to say to Congress and to the American people.
One more question about Ukraine. They have asked for a no-fly zone to be enforced by NATO over Ukraine to prevent Russian attacks on their cities and civilians. Doesn't seem like that's something that's possible. Can you explain why that is or whether that should be considered?
Having served on active duty in the United States Air Force, we have an amazing Air Force. We could absolutely set up a no-fly zone and we could obliterate Russian forces, except for one monumental fact. Russia owns more than half of the world's nuclear weapons. And that is what is preventing the U.S. and our allies from engaging militarily with Russian forces in Ukraine.
All right. Congressman Ted Lieu, West Los Angeles and the South Bay, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to hearing more from you as events warrant. Thanks again.